Welcome to part 2 of section 8.2 notes. We're going to be talking about factoring now. Hopefully you guys will notice that we have the same problems, we have the same answers we had before, but now we're going to go in reverse. We multiplied before in part 1, now we are factoring. What does it mean to factor? We're going to take, I don't know, let's take 15. No, let's take like something like, 15. We're going to take 15. So how do we factor 15? Factoring 15, you probably heard of the factor tree, is you break it down into its smaller components. Instead of writing 15, we could therefore write 5. Whoops, that's a 1, not a 5. We could write 5 times 3. So 15 is equal to 5 times 3. That's another way we can write it. Factoring with binomials and variables and polynomials is the exact same process. We're going to break it down into its smaller components. In order to do that, what we need to find are common factors between 2 and 6. 2x and 6. What do 2x and 6 have in common? What is their greatest common factor? This is the key. We're looking for the greatest factor that is a factor of 2x and also of 6. Well, you'll notice that the 6 does not have an x. The 2x does have an x. So we know that x is not going to be a factor here. We can eliminate x from contention for greatest common factor. Now we're going to concentrate on the numbers, the coefficients. So we have 2 and we have 6. What is the greatest common factor between 2 and 6? 2 goes into 2. 2 also goes into 6. Is there anything bigger? You can't pick 4, can't pick 6 because 4 doesn't go into 2 and 6 doesn't go into 2. Therefore, our biggest common factor, greatest common factor, is 2. What we're going to do is we are going to factor out of 2. What you're going to do next is put parentheses. So step 1, find the greatest common factor. Then you're going to, as we did in step 2, put the greatest common factor outside parentheses. So you're going to draw some parentheses, put the greatest common factor outside. Step 3, the final step. Divide each term by the GCF and write inside parentheses. Okay, so let's take 2x and divide by 2. What happens when we take 2x and divide by 2? We do 2x divided by 2. That just equals x. So we're going to write x inside our parentheses. You're going to copy the sign, plus. Now we do 6 divided by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So 3 is going to go inside the parentheses. What is our final answer? Our final answer is 2 times the quantity x plus 3. And you're going to see that was our first problem in multiplying. We distribute and we get this, 2x plus 6. We factor and we get 2x plus 3. Factoring is going in reverse of multiplying. That's how you undo the multiplying, is by factoring. Undoing the factoring is multiplying and distributing. So in the same vein, let's go ahead and do this. How do we do it? Well, as we learned, we need to find the greatest common factor. What is the greatest common factor between the first term, the middle term, and the last term? Can we have x? Well, let's start with the coefficients. So the coefficients, we have negative 6, we have positive 2, and we have positive 6. So a possible coefficient can't be 6. That's too big because it doesn't go into 2. Can't be 4. So it's got to be 2. 2 goes into negative 6, 2 goes into positive 2, and 2 goes into 6. What about the x? So now we need to look at the x. We have an x squared here. We have an x. So we could use x as a common factor. There's no variable next to the 6. What does that mean? Well, that means we cannot include the x. The x gets x'd out. Can't include it. So our only factor that we can include, that we can factor out, is the 2. So we put this outside the parentheses. I think this is step 2 of our procedure. Put the parentheses. And now we're going to take each one of these terms and we're going to divide by the greatest common factor. What does that look like? Well, negative 6x squared divided by 2 is going to give us negative 3x squared. We don't do anything with the x squared. And if this is positive, we don't do anything with the sign. If it's negative, we leave it negative. Positive, we leave positive. 2x divided by 2 just gives us x. And then 6 divided by 2 gives us positive 3. And there is our final answer. And as you can see, that's what we started with in our problem up here. We had that same thing. We started with that, we distributed, we got the factored form. We distributed, we got the standard form, and then we factored and we get factored form. Sorry, said that backwards at first. So this is a step-by-step procedure. I would definitely get this down in your notes, or at least understand its use. Now we just need to apply it to these different problems. Factor each polynomial. We have 5x squared plus 25x squared plus 45x. What I always like to do first is look at the coefficients. I have 5, I have 25, and I have 45. It's always good to start with the smallest coefficient. So the smallest coefficient is 5. So we want to see, does 5 go into 25 and does it go into 45? The answer is yes. Now, we can't pick anything bigger than 5. Obviously, we can't pick 25 because 25 doesn't go into 5. So we're going to pick 5 at least for our coefficient. Now we always look at the variable second. So the variable is x squared here, and x here. What does that mean? Well, we can pick x. Can we do x squared? X squared goes into x squared for the first one. X squared goes into x squared for the second one. X squared does not go into the last one. It's too big. But we can pick the smallest. Remember, you always want to start with the smallest terms. So the x would be a good one to start, and then the 5 was a good one to start with. So 5x is the greatest common factor. What do? We factor this out. GCF. 5, whoops, that's not how you write an x. 5x. Get my parentheses out. What's left inside? Well, 5x squared divided by 5x gives me just x. Another way to think of it, and this is actually what I do, is I say to myself, 5x times what, question mark, will get me, whoops, times what, question mark, will give me 5x squared, question mark. You're going to write that answer there. So 5x times x gives me 5x squared, so x goes there. If you like to think of it as, oh, I'm just going to take 5x squared, divide by 5x, and put that answer, go ahead and use that. I like to think of 5x, the greatest common factor, times what will give me the original standard form. But whatever floats your boat, you got to stick with it. Okay, now we're on to 5x, the middle term, 25x squared. So you can either do 25x squared divided by 5x. Well, that will give you 5. Or, oh, sorry, that's incorrect. 5, yeah, that's correct, 5x. 25x squared divided by 5x gives you 5x. Or what you can say is 5x times what gives you 25x squared, and that's 5x. That's the way I like to do it. Okay, finally, we're on to 45x, 45x. 5x times what gives me 45x, and that's 9, or 45x divided by 5x gives you 9, either one. You'll notice here, we could have combined like terms originally. So take a look. You'll notice inside the parentheses, we can combine like terms, and we could have done this in the original problem. So we should probably simplify this first. X plus 5x is 6x. Oh, where'd my 9 go? Plus 9. And now we have the 5x out in front. Here's our final answer. That is factored form. Moving on to the next one. Greatest common factor. Greatest common factor. First, look at the coefficients. I have a 3, I have a 9, and I have a 12. Well, I know 3 is the biggest common factor between those, so I'm going to write 3. Now I'm going to look at the variables. The variables, I have x to the 4th, x squared, and x. I'm going to stick with the smallest one. You always choose the smallest one with variables. It makes it a lot easier. So the smallest one is, my Apple Pencil will cooperate, x. So I'm just going to write 3x outside parentheses, 3x. And now I'm going to write my parentheses and do some division here. 3x to the 4th divided by 3x should give me x cubed. Same thing, 9x cubed. I copy the minus sign because this is positive out in front. When it's positive out in front, you don't need to change the signs. So I have 9x squared divided by 3x. That will give me 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. X squared divided by x is x. Now I have 12 divided by 3. That gives me 4. Keep the sign, negative. X divided by x is 1, so it's going to stay like that. This is my final answer for the factored form. We have 2 more problems. Hopefully I can do this quickly for you guys. It's the same process even if you have 4 terms. Okay, so you'll see here the smallest coefficient is 2. So it looks like 2 goes into all those terms. I'm good to roll with the 2 as my greatest common coefficient. Now I'm going to worry about the a's. I have a to the 5th, a to the 4th, a to the 3rd, a squared. My smallest one is a squared, clearly. Let me try to erase these other ones for you. I don't know why I did this. Okay, there we go, a squared. So I'm going to write a squared here. And now I do my parentheses and do some division. Here I'm going to get a cubed minus 4a squared plus 2a minus 5. And that's my final answer. One more problem. We're on letter D. Look at my greatest. First, I look at my coefficients. I have 15 and I have 3. My greatest coefficient is 3. 3 goes into 15, and it also goes into 3. I'm going to draw my parentheses. Oh, not in parentheses. Sorry. Almost forgot my variable. I bet my x is going to be mad about that. Now I have x cubed and x to the 5th. I'm choosing my smallest one, x cubed. Time for parentheses. Parentheses. 3x cubed times 5x squared will give me 15x to the 5th. Minus, and it looks like 3x cubed divided by 3x cubed, or 3x cubed times 1 will give me the last term, and there is my final answer. Hope you guys found this useful. Hope you guys understand factoring a little bit better, and that this helps you with your homework. And I'll see you next time. Until then, be good, be kind, be true, be nice, and be honest. Have a great day.